Hey everyone, Krazyed here. It's been a while since I posted a video, so I'd kind of like to get this out there and talk about what I've been doing in Harbinger League and since it started. Harbinger League was a lot of fun. I started with a Righteous Fire character just like everybody else, and I got bored with it after a while because I've played Righteous Fire a couple times before. So then I wanted to go ahead and get 24 challenges, even though all the MTX is hideous, and I made an Occultist with Essence Drain, which I had done a couple times before also. So I got bored with him after getting them to 90, and then I made a Raider bow character, and I was like, I've done this before, so I got bored with that, and then I thought, well, I really want to do a lab runner Pathfinder. Never done that, never gotten really uber move speed. I've done other characters that were good at running uber lab, but not, back to back really fast, getting full keys. So I needed a little bit of inspiration, and I saw a video that Windz had posted online about the Glacial Cascade Pathfinder and how he really liked the miner aspect, and I've had a miner before. I understand why it can, just one shot and push Izaro over, and this is kind of his take on it. I'm not going to claim it because I'm almost copying his build verbatim. So let's just go over a few quick things. It's really basic. It's a Pathfinder. I have a 6-length, Queen of the Forest using Devotos. I've got Glacial Cascade damage on here. You can do Smoke Mine duration, or Phase Run duration, or Phase Run movement speed, I think, is an enchant, or you can even do Glacial Cascade conversion if you want to. This was the cheapest, and I didn't really feel like I needed much more movement speed. I'm using a Screaming Eagle. I'm using an Evasion Buckler, which I got for like 10 chaos. This is 1500. You can get up to like 18 or 1900 with essence crafting. Then I'm wearing a Zeri Step for 30 move speed and 750-ish evasion. Some evasion life resists. Here I'm using a Rustic Sash, but you can use a Vanguard Belt to give even more move speed. This doesn't have any flask stuff on it either. And then in my offhand I have a crafted +3 Cold Gems bow. Windz explains how to craft these a lot, but basically you get yourself a 6-link bow with porcupines, craft the -18% attribute requirements, and then you roll for 5 or 6 off colors. So you want 5 blue, or 4 blue, or red and a green. Or 5 blue and a red, whichever one you get first. And then you have Glacial Cascade with Conk Effect, increased critical strikes, Remote Mine, and Elemental Focus, and Trap and Mine damage is what I've got mine linked to. You run your Hatred on a ring, and you basically, you can throw down a totem, and then you throw all your mines down, swap, and you start throwing your mines down, and when Zara pops up, he gets blasted by a bunch of mines. Pretty easy. I'm going to kind of go over in this video some of the stuff that Windz doesn't go over in his video. He quickly mentions at one point, you level up however you want to level. So, as y'all can see right now, I'm level 89. That's because I didn't really feel like pushing this character up to the low 90s. I thought that 89 was far enough. The difference between my tree and Windz's is, with 3 points, is I take out the crit strike multipliers. In Path of Building, these 3 nodes with cold and fire damage actually add more damage than the crit multi, and then he does not use elemental weakness. I use it on a blasphemy after I weapon swap, and he doesn't, so that actually makes up the damage. Oh, also I go for these mine nodes and the additional mine, whereas he just comes here and he has a strength node. I make up strength with my amulet. It has strength on it, and I don't think he does that. Yeah. So, he didn't talk about leveling and kind of what this build does and why he chose what he did. And that's what I'm going to do. Now, you can level however you want as your Pathfinder, and you really want to go for Nature's Adrenaline last, believe it or not. Your movement speed is nice when you're going through Uberlab, but your 2 main damage sources are actually this Master Alchemist and Veteran Bowyer. I leveled as a EK Nova, and to do that I had Heart of Oak, and then I used 4 points to come through here being the 2% movement speed, getting the ballistic mastery, and I also used a couple of other points for the fury bolts to pick up some strength early on. I picked up these sniper nodes, and then in addition to those, I also used the Victaro's Acuity Amulet, which gives power charge and frenzy charge generations. And then I came down here, picked up these nodes, the power charge node, the frenetic node, and with this node, blood drinker, frenetic, and nullification, I used a mini headhunter jewel. I can't remember what, inspired learning in this node. That it's a small radius, but this nullification is just big enough where it gets caught. Otherwise, you have to pick up this mind drinker node, and it doesn't really do much for an EK Nova. So before you spec out while you're doing all that, you're basically just a crit caster at that point. You can spec into these life nodes and spec out later, because you don't need any mind nodes, obviously. You don't need these trap nodes. And you can spec out of these nodes here as well as these nodes. And that gives you a whole lot to play around with. You still go mind over matter. You still go crit. Oh, you can spec out of the blast radius area too. AoE doesn't do anything, and that gives you enough to go for sniper and some of these other projectile speed nodes that are really good for EK Nova, and the duration nodes. Now you can pick up the arcane chemistry later on if you want to. That's really good, and you still want these because you do get mind over matter in your mid to late 80s before you respec out. For jewels, what you really want is you want something like this, where you have physical damage. Since Glacial Cascade does 100% physical, then converts. Physical damage is the best thing you can get. And then you want crit multiplier and crit chance. You want as much crit multi as you can get. Crit chance is a bonus as well. But you want physical damage on every jewel. Now, some of the 1, 2, and 3 stat jewels for this build are going to run you probably anywhere between 2 and 30 chaos, and the 4 stat jewels, especially with like physical damage and then double crit multiplier rolls, you're probably looking somewhere between 1 and 5 exalts for those jewels. So, and we use I don't even remember, 1, 2, skip that one, 3, 4 jewels. 4 jewel slots, so you can pick up a whole lot of crit multiplier there. And yeah, this node right here, Blood Siphon, is actually really good because it gives you plus 20 strength. Strength is kind of hard to come by since you want to have added fire, and power doesn't need a lot of strength. Yeah. Oh, and sorry, I used Signal Fire. That's one of the reasons why this little node cluster, the Snowforged, is so good, because you actually add a ton of damage with Signal Fire, and you want to get this gain 35% as fire damage. I think it goes from 30 to 35, so get that as high as you can, and that'll convert 100% of your physical damage over, combined with the Glacial Cascades already, converting 60%. One of the most important things you can do with this build is actually get all your gems to 20. Will get you the most amount of damage. I've actually got to get this one up to 20. It'll give me 1% more mine damage, and the mine laying speed is just a bonus on remote mines, but critical strikes will give you increased critical strike chance. The conk effect will give you increased area damage per quality, and like I said, these 3 nodes, actually, because they give you so much increased cold damage, and there's not a lot of increased damage nodes, it's all crit chance nodes and maybe some mine damage. The increases in damage and the little the 1% more multipliers that you get from leveling these gems up is huge. And Glacial Cascade, of course, try to get a level 21-20 if you can. They're really expensive right now. Glacial Cascade is getting kind of popular. So, with all my stuff up, let's bring my character screen back up. Miscellaneous, or is it where's move speed? Movement speed modifier 82. So you can see, and let's swap over, put my grace on. You can see I go up to 137, and then when I pop all my flasks, I go up to 371, and that's without. Go up to 423, and that's pretty fast. It's fast enough for me. I still get caught on some corners in the lab, and I've done dozens of lab runs with this guy, and I'm overall pretty happy. I will also say that I mentioned I was getting bored with Harbinger. This character is in the Standard League. I had a lot of currency, you know, I didn't want to level up another character. I didn't want to pay to respec my raider that I had built and then level him up. I wanted to play where I had all the gear, and like I just felt like I was going to waste my time if I made another Harbinger character. Granted, you can level really fast with the beachhead maps, but I couldn't put myself through it. So here I am in Standard, and I've actually been enjoying Standard a whole lot, like this league. Harbinger, I didn't think added a whole lot, like, yay, it dropped some extra types of currency. Fine. You know, Harbinger wasn't doing it for me, so I went back to Standard, and I did that. So the another thing Windz doesn't talk about in his guide is why miners are so good at pushing his RO over. And I say that because you really do. You kind of like put everything down and you push him over, right? You're trying to do as much damage in one shot as you can. Do that. So my mines, actually, let's do this. When I have with my tooltip, and I'll bring up my Path of Building right now. Path of Building for Glacial Cascade is having me doing 95, almost 96k on average hit with Glacial Cascade mine. Now, some of the things you can do with that are that you get your extra mine from Saboteur, and you get your extra mine here, and you actually don't use Minefield. And that's really important because Minefield actually has a less multiplier on it, but you get 2 more mines. Well, when you're trying to push his RO over, you want to do as much damage up front as you can. So you get 2 extra mines, but then all of your mines deal 30% less damage. So you're really not gaining that much. Whereas if you had, if you have 9 mines versus 7, it doesn't cancel out, right? You're actually losing a little bit of damage. It's good when you're clearing because you can throw 3 or 4 mines down with 1 or 2 clicks, and you get it. I'm gonna go on D&D. Alright, so I feel you guys. You want to buy stuff. I get it. So with that, this additional mines node is really important, and so is the Saboteur, aside from being, 44% damage for 2 points, it actually gives you that 1 additional remote mine, which is a huge deal. And that's really how you push him over, right? You front load all of your damage, while even if you have 20 Blade Vortex stacks and it hits, 10 times a second or whatever, I don't know how fast a 20 stack of Blade Vortex actually hits, it still takes you a second, whereas when you have the Detonate Mines totem down, and then you have all of your mines, and you have your flasks active, you're dealing a ton of damage, and it's all, boom, one big hit. You will encounter with this build, even sometimes you won't push him over, especially if you do have gargoyles as your first phase, or if you want to do charge disruptors or something like that, or if you have curses. That's why it's really important to have a curse immune flask in your belt. I think I have mine on my diamond flask, because I want to have my curses deactivated in case there's curses on the first or second phase. So that I'm not enfeebled or something like that. I'm doing full damage, and I always hit. Really, really important. Other than that, it's pretty straightforward. You just zoom through everything. All the traps in the lab are based off of your total life, and I am mind over matter, and you can see that I do have a hybrid flask. It just removes bleeding just in case I need it. And that's way more than enough. I have never died to traps. The couple times I've died in lab, I've actually just been to random wind wipe where he just one shots me, and I wasn't looking away, or I was just mispositioning on my part. So I'm a terrible player. Anyway, guys, so that's the build. That's kind of what I've been doing in the last little bit. I've actually got some other builds that I'm getting ready to showcase in some other videos. So if you guys like this, please like, subscribe, leave a comment below, and I will see y'all out in Rayclast.